The Evans family, seemingly ordinary, living quietly on a suburban street, were anything but. Behind closed doors, they hid a multi-million-pound secret. A sprawling drug empire funded by thousands in false benefits claims. How did this unassuming family pull off one of the most daring criminal deceptions Britain has ever seen? In a quiet, tree-lined suburb, just outside London, the Evans family lived in a modest, brick-built house that blended in seamlessly with the rest of the neighborhood. To anyone passing by, they appeared to be just another ordinary family trying to make ends meet in a world that was often unforgiving. Their lives seemed simple. Parents working odd jobs, children going to school, and neighbors exchanging polite greetings. But beneath this calm and familiar exterior was a story that few could have imagined. The Evans family was living a double life, one that involved careful planning, secrecy, and a web of lies. For years the Evans claimed government benefits, which helped them manage their household expenses. They presented themselves as struggling, relying on state support to get by. This was a story that fit perfectly with the quiet surroundings and the community's expectations. No one suspected that while they collected thousands of pounds in benefits, they were also running a highly organized illegal business. It was a drug empire hidden behind the curtain of poverty and hardship, a secret world that thrived in the shadows. Their home, which seemed modest, was actually the nerve center of their operations. The family had created an intricate system that allowed them to disguise the true source of their income. They moved money through fake businesses and manipulated official records to keep the authorities from uncovering their secrets. Each member of the family played a role, working together in silence. The parents kept the appearance of working odd jobs and managing the household, while the children helped in ways that went unnoticed. It was a careful balance between normal family life and criminal enterprise. Neighbors sometimes wondered how the family could afford expensive holidays and new cars on benefits money alone. But the Evans were experts at explaining away these contradictions. They told stories of lucky breaks and small business ventures, never revealing the truth. Their ability to maintain this facade for so long made their story even more shocking when it eventually came to light. What seemed like an ordinary British family was in reality the heart of a multi-million-pound drug operation, cleverly hidden in plain sight. For years the Evans family's lifestyle raised quiet questions among neighbors and local officials alike. While claiming thousands of pounds in government benefits meant for families struggling to make ends meet, the Evans somehow managed to maintain a lifestyle that didn't match their reported income. Expensive cars sat in the driveway, and each summer brought pictures of foreign holidays posted discreetly on social media. Friends and neighbors found it hard to reconcile these signs of wealth with the family's constant claims of financial hardship. But the truth was far more complicated, and far more sinister. Beneath the surface of their benefit claims lay a carefully constructed network designed to funnel vast sums of money from an illegal drug business. The family had mastered the art of living a double life. On the one hand, they presented themselves as victims of the system, reliant on welfare payments to survive. On the other, they controlled one of the most lucrative drug operations in the region. This secret empire generated millions of pounds each year. Money that was hidden behind layers of false paperwork and shadowy business dealings. The police and benefits investigators initially had little evidence to act on. The Evans family's financial trail was covered by a fog of fake addresses, dummy companies, and manipulated records. Their ability to mask their true earnings was impressive and frustrating. Officials who came into contact with the family often left with more questions than answers. The Evans were polite and cooperative, always ready with plausible explanations for any inconsistencies. Yet the clues were there, scattered and subtle, waiting for someone to put the pieces together. Locals continued to be puzzled by the family's apparent contradictions. How could a family claiming benefits afford the latest electronics, designer clothes, and frequent vacations? The answer was hidden in the Evans criminal network. The money flowing through their hands was not from a legitimate job or inheritance, but from the sale of illegal drugs across the city and beyond. It was a vast, complex operation, carefully concealed beneath the image of a struggling family. What nobody suspected was that every benefit claim, every government payment was helping to fund a drug empire worth millions, allowing the Evans to stay one step ahead of the law for years. The Evans family's ability to deceive went far beyond just claiming benefits they weren't entitled to. They had built an entire world of lies around their drug business, creating a complex web that allowed them to operate undetected for years. Their suburban home was not just a family residence, it was the command center of their illegal empire. From there they coordinated shipments, managed finances, and directed distribution networks that stretched across cities. The Evans had mastered the art of blending in, hiding criminal activities behind the mask of everyday life. Each family member had a role carefully designed to keep the operation running smoothly. The mother, who often appeared tired and overwhelmed, was in charge of the books. She managed a series of fake companies that processed the drug money, turning dirty cash into clean funds. The father was the public face of the family, always polite and unassuming, attending community meetings and maintaining the illusion of normality. Meanwhile, the children, though young, were involved in small but essential tasks, delivering messages, keeping watch, or passing packages discreetly. The entire family worked in silence, trusting each other to keep the secret safe. This level of coordination allowed the Evans to evade suspicion for a long time. They used coded language, hidden compartments, and careful timing to ensure that no one outside the family could trace their movements. The suburban streets, once thought to be quiet and safe, became routes for drug deliveries and money transfers. Neighbors never noticed the subtle signs, the late-night visitors, the unmarked cars, the packages exchanged in alleyways. Everything was designed to look normal, to avoid drawing attention. Their drug empire was highly organized and efficient. Suppliers from overseas sent shipments that were broken down and distributed through local contacts. The Evans controlled every step of the process, from import to street-level sales. Their ability to manage such a large and dangerous operation while maintaining the appearance of a struggling family was remarkable. It was a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous criminals live right next door, hiding in plain sight behind the familiar faces of a community. The first real crack in the Evans family's carefully constructed facade appeared almost by chance. One evening, during a routine traffic stop, a police officer noticed something unusual. A small amount of drugs was found hidden inside a car registered to a member of the Evans family. At first, this discovery seemed minor, a simple possession charge that wouldn't raise too many questions. But for investigators, it was the first tangible clue that something more serious was happening behind the family's quiet exterior. Once the small arrest was made, law enforcement began to take a closer look at the family's activities. What started as a minor inquiry quickly expanded into a full investigation. Officers and benefits fraud specialists began digging through financial records, public benefit claims, and neighborhood reports. The inconsistencies were hard to ignore. While the Evans family insisted they lived on benefits and small jobs, their bank accounts told a different story. Large sums of money were flowing through accounts that didn't match their reported income. The investigation revealed a complex and sophisticated operation. The family's finances were intertwined with multiple businesses that existed only on paper. These fake companies acted as fronts, allowing the Evans to move money in ways that appeared legitimate. This money laundering tactic was a key part of the drug empire's success, disguising millions of pounds earned from illegal sales as everyday business transactions. Each discovery deepened suspicions and pointed toward a much larger criminal enterprise. For the police, every piece of evidence raised new questions. How had the Evans family managed to avoid detection for so long? How many others were involved? And just how big was the drug network they controlled? These questions drove investigators to dig deeper, uncovering more details about the family's secret lives. Surveillance was increased, phone taps were authorized, and informants were sought. Slowly but surely, the layers of deception began to unravel. What initially looked like a small drug possession case turned into a significant breakthrough. The routine traffic stop was the first step in exposing the Evans family's hidden empire, one that had been carefully built over years, concealed beneath false benefit claims and the image of an ordinary British family. This was only the beginning of a much larger story. Following the breakthrough of the traffic stop, financial experts were brought in to unravel the tangled web of money surrounding the Evans family. Their mission was to trace every pound that flowed through the family's accounts, searching for clues that could link their lifestyle to illegal activities. What they found was both shocking and puzzling. Millions of pounds moving in and out of bank accounts with no clear explanation. These funds didn't come from jobs, savings, or inheritance. They came from the drug empire the family had built over the years. The Evans family had become experts at hiding their wealth. They used a range of clever tactics to cover their tracks. Fake businesses were set up, companies that existed only on paper, designed to make illegal money appear legitimate. These businesses claimed to provide services or sell goods, but were nothing more than fronts for laundering cash. The family's financial transactions were carefully planned to avoid triggering suspicion from banks or authorities. Cash deposits were split into smaller amounts, spread across different accounts and locations. This method, known as smurfing, helped keep large sums hidden. Despite their efforts, investigators began to notice patterns. Large sums of cash appeared regularly, often shortly after drug shipments were believed to have been received. Payments to supposed suppliers and contractors were traced back to people who didn't exist or companies that had closed years ago. Each transaction was a piece of the puzzle, revealing the extent of the Evans family's deception. At the same time, benefits officials were working to understand how the family had managed to claim thousands of pounds over the years without raising red flags. The Evans exploited weaknesses in the system, submitting false information about income and employment. They combined benefit claims with their drug profits to create a steady flow of income that was difficult to trace. This blend of fraud and criminal enterprise made their operation unusually resilient. The more investigators uncovered, the clearer it became that the Evans empire was far bigger than initially thought. Their sophisticated financial schemes kept them one step ahead, making it difficult to bring the full scale of their crimes to light. But the money trail was there, and it was only a matter of time before it led to the heart of their illegal empire. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the Evans family was not working alone. Their drug empire extended far beyond the quiet suburban streets where they lived. Behind the scenes, a secret network of contacts and partners stretched across cities and even countries, creating a complex chain that allowed drugs to move swiftly from overseas suppliers to local dealers. This hidden world was a stark contrast to the family's seemingly simple life. The Evans had connections in key locations like ports and warehouses, places essential to smuggling operations. Drugs arrived in shipments disguised as ordinary cargo, hidden among legitimate goods to avoid detection by customs officials. Trusted contacts at these sites helped the Evans move these shipments through checkpoints and onto waiting vehicles. These individuals were careful and professional, knowing the risks involved but motivated by the large sums of money involved. From the ports, the drugs were transported to secret storage locations scattered around the region. These warehouses acted as holding areas where shipments were divided into smaller quantities before being sent out for street-level sales. The Evans coordinated this distribution with military precision. They used coded messages and trusted couriers to keep the operation running smoothly. Surveillance cameras and police patrols meant the network had to be constantly alert to avoid capture. Beyond the physical movement of drugs, the Evans maintained contact with buyers and distributors in other cities, ensuring a steady flow of customers. This allowed them to expand their reach far beyond their local neighborhood. It was no longer just a family business. It was a well-organized criminal network, with multiple layers designed to protect those at the top. This international link added another layer of difficulty for investigators. The Evans' overseas contacts were often based in countries with less cooperation in criminal investigations, making it harder to track shipments and follow the money. Interpol and other agencies were brought in to assist, But the family's use of intermediaries and false identities made the trail difficult to follow. What started as a small family operation had grown into a sprawling international to follow. What started as a small family operation had grown into a sprawling international drug network. The quiet suburban house was just the tip of the iceberg, a cover for a business that crossed borders and challenged law enforcement at every turn. The Evans had built a criminal empire hidden in plain sight. As the pressure from the investigation mounted, cracks began to appear within the Evans family itself. For years they had operated like a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part without question. But now, with police surveillance intensifying and the threat of arrest looming, the carefully maintained trust started to falter. Fear and tension replaced the silence that once kept their secret safe. Inside the family home, the atmosphere grew strained. The parents, once confident and composed, showed signs of stress and worry. The burden of hiding their illegal activities from neighbors, friends, and even their own children weighed heavily on them. They knew the walls were closing in, but they still clung to the hope that they could outsmart the authorities. However, the constant presence of law enforcement and the growing evidence made this hope harder to hold on to. Among the children, too, uncertainty and fear took root. They had been involved in small ways for years, trusting their parents' instructions and believing in the family's carefully crafted story. But as the investigation deepened, whispers of informants and police raids made some of them question whether staying loyal was the right choice. The possibility of betrayal, once unthinkable, became a real concern. Tensions rose as suspicion grew. Who could be trusted when the law was closing in? Outside the home, surveillance captured moments that revealed the family's increasing anxiety. Late-night phone calls, hurried meetings, and whispered conversations suggested that plans were being made to protect themselves. Some family members appeared distracted and jumpy, while others tried to maintain normal routines, hoping to avoid drawing attention. This growing internal conflict was a dangerous weakness. The Evans' strength had always been their unity, their ability to work together in silence. Now, that unity was at risk. Investigators knew that pressure could lead to mistakes or even cooperation from inside the family. The hope of finding a turning point in the case grew stronger as the family's facade started to crumble. The cracks were small at first, but they threatened to shatter everything. Behind closed doors, the Evans faced their toughest challenge yet. Not just from the police, but from the fear and doubt spreading within their own ranks. After months of careful planning and gathering evidence, law enforcement officials finally moved in to dismantle the Evans family's operation. The raid was swift and coordinated, involving dozens of officers targeting multiple locations connected to the family's drug empire. It wasn't just their suburban home that was under scrutiny. Warehouses, vehicles, and secret storage sites across the region were also hit simultaneously. The scale of the operation shocked the community, revealing just how deeply the family's criminal activities had taken root. As officers entered the Evans home, they found a scene very different from the ordinary family life the neighbors had known. Hidden compartments contained bags of drugs ready for distribution, while large sums of cash were stashed away in unlikely places. Luxury items, expensive watches, designer clothes, and high-end electronics showed just how profitable the operation had been. But perhaps most damaging to the family's defense were the documents uncovered. Detailed records, coded messages, and financial papers linked the benefits claims to the drug business, proving the fraud that had been suspected for so long. The arrests were made quickly. Not only were the family members detained, but several associates and key players in the wider network were also taken into custody. This included contacts at ports and warehouses, as well as local dealers who had worked under the Evans' direction. The reach of the operation was extensive, and law enforcement officials hoped this coordinated strike would cripple the entire network. Seized assets included multiple luxury cars, thousands of pounds in cash, and drug stockpiles, all of which would be used as evidence in court. The raid sent a strong message. The Evans family's empire, built on lies and crime, was no longer untouchable. The community, shocked by the revelations, watched as the reality of the family's secret life came crashing down. For the police, this was a major victory. Years of hard work and careful surveillance had paid off. Yet despite the arrests, the full extent of the operation was still unfolding. Investigators knew this was only the beginning of a long legal battle to bring the entire network to justice. The Evans world had collapsed, but the story was far from over. The trial of the Evans family quickly became a major news story, capturing the attention of the public and shining a spotlight on how deeply crime could be hidden behind everyday appearances. The courtroom was packed as the prosecution laid out the full extent of the family's illegal activities, presenting evidence that showed not only drug trafficking on a massive scale, but also years of benefits fraud. The story that unfolded was one of deception, greed, and the exploitation of a system designed to help those in genuine need. Throughout the trial, the prosecution revealed how the Evans had manipulated the benefits system, submitting false documents and misleading officials to claim thousands of pounds in public funds. These payments, combined with millions earned through drug sales, allowed the family to live a lifestyle far beyond their reported means. The evidence included bank statements, financial records, and secret communications, all pointing to a well-organized scheme that was carefully hidden from view. The defense tried to challenge the evidence, claiming that some of the documents were fabricated or misinterpreted. They argued that the family had legitimate reasons for their financial situation and that the drug charges were exaggerated. Despite their efforts, the overwhelming amount of proof against the Evans made it difficult to convince the jury otherwise. Witnesses called by the prosecution painted a detailed picture of the drug network, describing how shipments were imported, stored, and distributed. Experts explained the methods used to launder money and how the family exploited loopholes in the benefits system. The courtroom became a place where the hidden world of crime was brought to light, revealing how ordinary people could become involved in illegal activities without raising suspicion. For many watching the trial, the story was a shocking reminder of the vulnerabilities in both law enforcement and social support systems. The Evans family's ability to maintain their criminal empire for so long raised serious questions about how such operations could be detected and stopped earlier. When the verdict was finally delivered, it sent a clear message. The Evans family's crimes had consequences, and the justice system was determined to hold them accountable. The trial ended, but the impact of the case continued to resonate, sparking debate and reflection across communities. The conviction of the Evans family marked the end of a long and complex investigation, but it was just the beginning of a broader conversation about the systems they had exploited. Authorities across the country took notice, realizing that this case exposed serious weaknesses in both the benefits system and the ways law enforcement tracked drug crimes. The Evans family's story became a powerful example of how ordinary appearances can hide extraordinary crimes, and how criminals can use the very support meant to help vulnerable people to fund illegal activities. In response, government agencies began reviewing their policies, seeking ways to tighten controls and prevent similar fraud from happening in the future. Benefits assessments were updated to include more thorough cross-checks with financial records, and data sharing between departments was improved. These changes aimed to catch false claims earlier, reducing the risk of criminals exploiting the system. Meanwhile, law enforcement increased efforts to track and dismantle drug networks operating under similar disguises, using new technology and better cooperation between agencies. The Evans case also had a deep impact on the local community. Neighbors, once shocked by the revelations, began to look more closely at what might be hidden behind other seemingly ordinary lives. Community groups and social workers stepped up efforts to support families genuinely struggling, hoping to prevent others from falling prey to crime or exploitation. The story served as a harsh reminder that appearances can be deceiving, but it also encouraged vigilance and support. For those involved in the case, the Evans family's empire was a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and deception. Their rise and fall exposed not only a criminal network,